Welcome to the Daily Faceoff Show, your everyday source for the latest news with top-notch insight and analysis. Live every weekday at noon Eastern.
Everything is happening. That's right. It's Thursday, May 12th. It's a playoff edition of the Daily Faceoff Show. He's Mike McKenna, former NHL netminder. And Mike, we've got Hart Trophy finalists, some controversy, no hearing, and a pretty big injury for the Pittsburgh Penguins and their captain and Sidney Crosby. A lot to digest. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. My head's just spiraling around thinking of everything that's happened within the hockey world, and coupled with a couple of flat tires riding my mountain bike in the last few weeks, man. What a life, huh? So I'm going to get my mind off the trails and get it right back on the ice here, Frank. We got plenty to discuss.
I thought flat tires only happened when I sat on bikes. Okay, good to know. Let's throw 2 minutes and 30 seconds up on the clock, and let's drop the puck with this. The Sidney Crosby injury that looms large over their first-round series with the Pittsburgh Penguins, with the New York Rangers, The Rangers simply had no answer for Crosby when he was on the ice, but when he was off of it, that's when they really seemed to come alive for the first time in this series. He left the game with 6 minutes and 50 seconds remaining in the second period after that hit from Jacob Trouba. Mike, here are some images that I believe perfectly walk you through this hit and how the NHL Department of Player Safety arrived at their decision to not suspend Jacob Trouba for the hit. What do you see on this play?
Well, to me, it's hard hockey, and it's a hit that Trouba's made a lot this year and never been suspended for. And in this situation, I think he's just stepping up and going through the puck. He makes contact with that first, and the byproduct is that Crosby is in the lane. And Trouba is someone who will step up and punish you if you cut through the middle. But here's the thing about Jacob Trouba. His elbows are always in, his shoulders are down, and this angle, you can see it looks like his elbow pops up in that third still frame. But when you see it from other sides and even from the front, that wasn't the case, where it wasn't an elbow, it wasn't a shoulder. I think that this was just something of an awkward collision because Crosby's trying to avoid Trouba here and gets a little bit away from the point of contact so that it hits him in a way that his head snaps back and has that whiplash effect, Frank. So I didn't see this as predatory on Jacob Trouba's part at all. I thought he was going through the puck. He made body contact, and just the body position that Crosby had left him a little bit vulnerable, and Trouba wasn't able to adjust.
Yeah, I think it's really just an unfortunate play all the way around. You mentioned that third still frame there with the arm up from Trouba, and a lot of people are referring to that today as a chicken wing. I personally don't see it that way. Going, through these photos, Trouba is clearly trying to get stick on puck in that first photo. Yep. You see the second one, a lot of people have called this a headshot. That to me looks like Jacob Trouba going shoulder to shoulder. The main point, the primary point of contact is Jacob Trouba's shoulder with Sidney Crosby's chest, it looks like. And the unfortunate part is because his stick is tangled in Crosby, you can see it go underneath him there, that when Crosby's going backwards and the force of the hit, his stick comes up because of the top hand on the stick, and it makes it look like a chicken wing or an elbow when really it's just the nature of it. I think Kevin Bieksa did a great job of pointing this out on Hockey Night in Canada on Wednesday night after the hit, saying if he was really going to use an elbow, it would have been on his free hand, not necessarily the hand with his stick. So, you look at where the puck is, and the reason why we included the fourth one is because the puck was actually behind Crosby the entire time. So if Jacob Trouba is still trying to play the puck, well, he's trying to get it behind Crosby, and that seemed to be his intent going in. The Pittsburgh Penguins and coach Mike Sullivan not offering any real sort of an update on Thursday in his morning press conference. He said that Crosby will be evaluated when they get back to Pittsburgh later today. He did leave Madison Square Garden with the team on their bus. They're calling it an upper body injury. And Mike, I think everyone's concerned for Crosby because he missed 114 games with a concussion in his career. I think everyone's hoping that that's not the case, but this would be an incredible series changer for the New York Rangers if Crosby's not available. Crosby, 9 points in the first 4 games. And I've never really seen a game, especially in the playoffs, swing, Mike, with one player leaving the game like it did in Game 5.
It was massive. I mean, the Penguins had the game in control. They're up 2-0 until late in the second period. Crosby goes out midway through that period, and then the Rangers come back and fire 3 pucks in the net in 2.5 minutes late in the period, in the second. And it was palpable. You could tell that it was like the Pittsburgh Penguins they're like Christmas lights. You know the Christmas lights, Frank, where if one of them goes out, they all go out. Okay. That looked to me like what happened to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They lost Crosby and the rest of the lights went out. They stopped thinking, they stopped playing, they let the Rangers come back into the game, and they couldn't stymie it. And now you're looking at a series that's up for grabs again. It's at 3-2. I'm sure the Penguins would absolutely love to have Crosby back because he's been playing at an MVP level, Frank, some of the best hockey that I have ever seen from him. And he has been better than the top players on the New York Rangers. But there's still stuff to play here. And Frank, we're also looking at potentially different goaltenders even. Tristan Jarry might be back for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So does that throw a wrinkle into things? I don't think this series is done yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So the Penguins are in kind of a weird spot. The Rangers got to Domingue for the first time at the end of that second period and really made life difficult for him. He gives up 4. I know you had a breakdown on your Twitter feed of some of the goals that he allowed, and certainly not pinning this all on Louis Domingue at all. But when you look at the Penguins and where they stand goaltending wise, Tristan Jarry practiced before they ended up going to New York. He did not back up, but I think could potentially be available as soon as Game 6 on Friday. Would you go with Jarry, knowing that you have a 3-2 series lead and this may be the best time to work him back in? What happens if Louis Domingue blows up in Game 6 and you lose? Do you then throw Jarry in for a pressure cooker in Game 7? You know, they've got some tough decisions to make in terms of their goaltending. Mike Sullivan saying today that Tristan Jarry is making excellent progress.
Yeah, I think if Jarry's healthy, he goes in Game 6. Because like you said, you don't want your first game in a month to be Game 7. So Game 6 gives a buffer. If Jarry goes in and plays great, phenomenal. If he doesn't, well, at least he's got some time to get, to get back in the groove for Game 7 possibly. And, Louis Domingue has come in and done a good job for the Penguins. But he's a 905 goaltender save percentage in this league, and Jarry's a 915, 920, and he's been their horse all year. If he's healthy, he's going to play. I would do that if I'm Mike Sullivan, but it's all going to come down to how Tristan Jarry's feeling, maybe even as late as that morning skate.
Yeah, I was going to say he may be healthy. How healthy is he? He's certainly been pushing the envelope in terms of this return from the fractured bone in his foot. So, juicy storylines heading into Game 6 on Friday for the Penguins. We'll get some sort of status update at some point, we would hope, from the Penguins with regard to Crosby's availability as well. So the Rangers pull off a big comeback. They erase a 2-goal deficit. Even bigger for the comeback Cats in Game 5 on home ice for them. The Florida Panthers erasing a 3-0 hole against the Washington Capitals. Man, Carter Verhaeghe did something that no player in the NHL has done in the last 78 years. Yes, I'm evoking Toe Blake in 1944. His team was trailing by a 3-goal deficit, and he factored in on all of his team's tallies in the comeback, as Verhaeghe did as well. A 5-point night as he sets a Florida Panthers record for most goals in a series as well as most points in a series. And Verhaeghe is now tied with Cale Makar, as you can see here, for the playoff scoring lead through just 5 games. We still have potentially 1 or 2 more to go for Verhaeghe to add to his records in Florida Panthers history. It feels, Mike, like the Panthers are kind of finally in the driver's seat in the series. Yes, we know they have the lead, but more than that, it feels like they're not going to be fazed by whatever the Caps throw at them. They felt a little bit more comfortable in Game 5.
That's been Florida all season long. They've come back from 3-0 deficits, I think 6 times this year, which is unfathomable. And you think about how difficult that is in the NHL, the amount of belief that you have to have in your locker room and in your, amongst your players as a coaching staff. That's not easy to do. And Verhaeghe's been on fire, but you're also getting production now. Like Huberdeau was really quiet last night. Okay. He's zeros across the board, but Giroux comes up big. It's the reason why you grab that offensive threat from the Flyers at the deadline, goal and assist for him. And like, here's the thing. If I'm Peter Laviolette, the coach of the Capitals, I'm looking at that first period. I'm thinking, why couldn't we continue that on? Why couldn't we be three goals ahead and play the full 60? Well, because Florida has weapons. And if you don't play tight on Florida and you feed their transition like Washington did, you're in trouble, no matter how hard you check. Because Washington, despite the score, has managed to play to their identity of being big and heavy when they need to be, but they can't keep up with the skating of Florida when things go sideways. And you see it. I mean, Verhaeghe had 5 points in a bunch of different ways with different players, Frank. That speaks to the versatility of what the Panthers can do. And I mean, part of this too, for me, Frank, you can look at the numbers all you want for Sergei Bobrovsky, and you can try to analyze that. But the bottom line is this guy's been closing out games all season long. Okay, 39-7-3. You don't do that unless you have that pedigree. And I thought he was really good in the third last night. So it's going to be a challenge for Washington. I think Florida has definitely hit their stride here, especially once they figured out after that first period. We got to play fast. We got to play our game. We're not counterpunching anymore. It's time to go.
Yeah, nice to see them take over the series finally. It felt like they, as you mentioned, found their identity and found a little bit of comfort in that, now knowing that they have a chance to close out the Caps in Game 6 in DC on Friday night. Another opportunity to close out their series on Friday night will belong to the Calgary Flames after they also had a comeback, entered the third period down 1-0 on home ice at the Dome against the Dallas Stars. And they get a big third period push, end up winning that game by a 3-1 margin, and a pretty big opportunity for Michael Backlund to step up for the Calgary Flames, a goal and an assist to put the Flames in front in that series, as they've sort of had to wade through the muck against this Dallas Stars team all series long.
I'm not surprised at all that this series has taken longer than people thought they would have at the beginning, because the Dallas Stars may not have the star power. They may have the not have the scoring depth, but man, do they play hard, and they play to their identity. It's the key word at this time of the year, identity. Well, you know what you have with Dallas, and they're going to work, and it all goes through their captain. Everybody follows Jamie Benn's lead. And, Dallas started off this game by doing something they hadn't yet. They split up their top line. They put Jason Robertson down with Ben and Sagan. They put Raffle up with Hintz and Pavelski, trying to generate a little more offense. Robertson scores early. And I thought Dallas was better for the first half of the game. But the hero that you mentioned, Michael Backlund, talked about this after the game, that they came in between the second and third period, and the Flames said, we have to just stick to our identity and play our game, and it will work. And it did. They stuck with it, and they were the better team in the second half. 3 goals in the third period. Like, Frank, how about the goal from Mangiapane? That was an absolute missile over Ottinger. So it's been a tactical series, man, and it's been fun to watch. Calgary went 7D last night. Michael Stone was basically a power play specialist for them. So from a systematic standpoint, Frank, I've loved this series, and I'd love to see it go 7, but I think Calgary's in the driver's seat now.
Yeah, Mangiapane really needed that goal. And you mentioned, someone else that might need one. Matthew Kachuk. He's been surprisingly quiet. I know Daryl Sutter took him and bumped him down the lineup, as Game 5 went on. When you look at Kachuk and his sort of lack of impact in this series, aside from maybe tussling with a few guys here and there, are you surprised that for the 100 and whatever plus point score that he had this season, that he hasn't had a bigger impact in this series? It feels like Kachuk would be a, playoff, big time marquee player
in some ways, but I think it has to do with the matchup, and it has to do with how Dallas plays against the Flames. They did it earlier this year, played them really hard. And I think the defensive prowess of the top 2 lines of Dallas is something that's underrated. Pavelski, Ben, they play hard, and Kachuk, I mean, as his game is so involved in the physical side of things, it can be to his detriment as well. When he can just focus on putting the puck in the net, collecting points from Gaudreau and Lindholm, it's an easier game for him. These heightened awareness moments, I think, are tougher for him. So I'm sure that he'll snap out of it at some point if they continue on. But I think this is a big credit to how Dallas has played against him.
Yeah, I think we'll end up hearing from Matthew Kachuk at some point before this series is over. Let's go down to Tampa and let's talk to Scott Burnside for today's edition of the All 32, delivered by DoorDash. That's right. Pleased to welcome back to the Daily Faceoff Show our senior writer, Scott Burnside, who is live at Amalie Arena today as the Tampa Bay Lightning and Toronto Maple Leafs are wrapping up their morning skates. Scott, for this edition of the All 32 delivered by DoorDash, just wanted to get a vibe check from you. How do the Toronto Maple Leafs look and feel this morning? Are there any, you notice any players doing anything a little bit out of the ordinary, anything different as they're in a spot where they have an opportunity to knock off the two-time defending Stanley Cup champs tonight?
Yeah. Notice a little Vinny Lecavalier behind me, shades of 2004. It's interesting. The Leafs are just getting done. Their extras are doing a little shinny stick time out here at Amalie Arena. And John Cooper came in, Nick Paul and Corey Perry came in and chatted after the Lightning morning skate. And I'm so fascinated to see what will unfold tonight here in Game 6, because this is a series that there's been no real flow to it, right? No team has won twice in a row. Penalties have really ruled the day here. John Cooper talking about it this morning, this notion of not really knowing what to expect. I think between the two teams, there are 56 minor penalties in this series. And, John Cooper hopes that his team, it's not the penalties as far as he's concerned, it's the type of penalty and the timing of it. So, too many men, puck over glass, those are the kinds of things he's hoping to eliminate or see his team eliminate tonight in Game 6. And this is a Lightning team that they always respond in the playoffs after a loss. And so, it's going to, what are we going to see from Andrei Vasilevsky? If history proves to be an indicator, he's going to be at the top of his game. That means that Jack Campbell is going to have to match that. I think it's critical for the Leafs to get off to a good start, certainly a better start than they got off to in Game 5, even though they came back to win that game 4-3. I think there's an enormous amount of pressure on the Leafs because they understand what's at stake here, right? They haven't won a playoff series since 2004. They've been in this position, a chance to move on for 4 straight playoff years, and have not been able to deliver the goods. And we saw their big guns step to the fore, down 2-0, came back. I expect that will have to happen again in Game 6 if the Leafs are going to rewrite history. And again, even though no team has won 2 games in a row, I think the last thing this Leaf team wants is to be going home to Toronto for a Game 7. So I just think there's so much on the line for both these teams. Possible end of an era, Tampa after going back to back and staring a first round elimination in the face, and of course, all the history that's stacked up against the Leafs, a chance to really write a new narrative for this franchise. It should be great drama tonight.
The Leafs are looking to vanquish those ghosts of playoff past, as we talked about this week on the Suitcase and Scribe podcast, Scott. Both of these teams, especially Toronto, was one that people all look towards. What are they going to do at the deadline? Who are they going to pick up? But Tampa was pretty sneaky as well. They picked up Brandon Hagel from the Hawks. They picked up Nick Paul from the Senators. And the Leafs counter by getting Giordano from Seattle. What's your assessment of the difference that those players on both sides have made in this series? Has it tipped in favor of one of these teams either way?
Yeah, and of course, we had Nick Paul on our podcast not too long ago, Mike, and I spoke to him this morning, actually, and such a great guy. And he has, to me, he's been the real difference maker, in terms of the trade deadline additions for the Lightning. Mark Giordano, listen, he's at a different phase of his career, certainly, than when he won Norris Trophy. To me, this kind of game is exactly why you have Mark Giordano, right? You have to have someone who can help you ride out those emotions. Jason Spezza, such a great player and nearing the end of his career, and was such a pivotal part of that come from behind win in Game 5, talking to Jack Campbell on a TV timeout, talking to the team between periods. I think Mark Giordano, his presence is going to be important if there are early hiccups for the Leafs in Game 6. That's why you brought him in here. It's a little early to to suggest which team might have done better at the deadline, we may know about 10:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. But I'm really curious to see how the Leafs respond to the pressure, and they can talk about how it doesn't matter to them, the history, all that kind of stuff. That weighs on them. It has to. Everyone knows that the history of failure for this team in the playoffs. They have a chance to rewrite it tonight. But boy, they've got a team to go through that knows all about pressure, knows all about winning in the tight spots. So should be a great tilt.
All right, Scott, it's time for your pick. One streak is ending tonight. The Leafs are 0-7 in the Matthews and Marner era in elimination games, or the Tampa Bay Lightning being 16-0 following a loss over these last 3 playoff runs. Which one is it, and why?
I'm going to stay consistent. I picked the Leafs to win this series. I picked them to win 7. I don't like their chances if they're going to game 7. So I'm going to pick the Leafs tonight. I think it's time. I think you're going to see terrific performances from Austin Matthews. John Tavares, his play in game 5 was so critical. I think he follows that up with another strong game tonight. I think we see Jack Campbell do the job. I'm going to say Leafs 4-3, maybe 5-3 with an empty netter. But I'm going for the Leafs. We're going to see what happens.
I also picked the Leafs to win this series in 6. Really interesting, Scott. We're either going to have a totally new narrative, a new story being written, or a creative way to tell the same old, it feels like, for the Leafs, as they would have to go back to Toronto, gripping their sticks ever so tightly against the 2-time defending champs. Man, what theater. So great to have Scott Burnside live in Tampa tonight in the building. Follow along on Twitter as well as at dailyfaceoff.com. Scott, enjoy the game. This has been the All 32 delivered by DoorDash. You see the promo codes there at the bottom of your screen. DFODD if you're in Canada, DFODDUS if you're in the United States. That gets you 25% off and free delivery on your first order with DoorDash. All your favorites and more delivered right to your door by DoorDash. Thanks, Scott. All right, Mike, it's time for our Daily Faceoff inbox question of the day. #AskDFO. We're going to have you rank them. Which teams tonight, give them to me 1 to 4, have the best chance of staying alive tonight, as we've got 4 elimination games on the docket?
I think the Lightning have the best chance. Unlike you and Scott, who were really high on the Toronto Maple Leafs, I picked the Lightning in that series, and I think it was in 5 games, so I've already been proven way wrong. So I think the Lightning have a best chance to take in this game tonight. I go the Oilers right after. Even though the Oilers are down in the series, last game was close, overtime game. They're going to be hurting without Darnell Nurse. I think the Wild, I'm going to put 3rd, and then the Bruins 4th. How about yourself?
I think the Wild have the best chance to keep their season alive tonight. I'm going to go with the Lightning 2nd. I am going to go with the LA Kings 3rd and the Boston Bruins 4th. I think the Bruins are the one team that I can say with some degree of confidence gets knocked off tonight. And I do think the Oilers should be on some alert. If they have any start like they had in these last 2 games against the LA Kings and come out unprepared, I just don't think they're good enough. I don't think they're mature enough to do it. And to do it without their number 1 defenseman in Darnell Nurse tonight, that certainly looms large in Game 6 in Los Angeles. That brings us to our Daily Faceoff Daily Bets with Tyler Yaremchuk, a man who was saved by the New York Rangers comeback last night at the Garden.
Yes, big save with the Rangers coming through. So we were up another 0.1 of a unit here, and it's going to be a busy night for me here on the NHL slate. So let's jump into it, courtesy of our friends at PointsBet here. I'll be really quick with this one. I like the over once again in Carolina-Boston. It's hit 6 or more in every game in this series, plus 105. Boom, solid payout. Edmonton-LA, I'm taking the over as well, actually. Over 6.5, been hitting pretty consistently in this series. I love that spot as well. Overs have been on fire so far in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And digging into this matchup a little bit more here, McDavid and Draisaitl. Draisaitl scored in every game but 1. McDavid has 2 goals in this series as well. They're both plus money. I'm actually taking them both. I think the Oilers may be denied tonight, but I do not think their star players will be held off the score sheet. These two guys they were on fire to end game 5. I think they continue that and both score. So I'm taking Draisaitl at plus 110, McDavid at plus 115 to find the back of the net. And that's all I got tonight, Frank.
Man, such theater tonight. So many interesting things to watch. Mike, we have garbage time. I usually cede the floor to you, but I wanted to comment on some actual legitimate garbage time that we got in the NHL. And first, I wanted to commend Ryan Lindgren for gutting it out in Game 5 at the Garden. He hadn't skated since that triple overtime game and had missed the last few games for the Rangers. So to try it out, they weren't sure a true game time decision. They also had Patrick Nemeth dressed as a 7th defenseman. So they went 7D, 11 forwards. And guess what? Ryan Lindgren, who actually even left the game for a stretch as he was getting tended to, he was leading the Rangers in ice time through 2 periods. Patrick Nemeth, you still do not get a shift, sir. And guess what? He was mopping it up with some actual garbage time once the New York Rangers had sealed off the win with the empty net goal. They say, hey, Patrick Nemeth, we don't want anyone to get hurt, so why don't you go out there and play the last 16 seconds, his one shift of the game, the final 16 seconds for the Rangers. Tough spot for Patrick Nemeth sitting on the bench. Probably a pretty lonely place to be. What do you even say, Mike, if you're the backup tendy and you're sitting next to the D-man that has not a prayer of getting out there unless they go down a guy?
You're trying to warm them up some way, keep them loose. I can't imagine that conversation. I'm imagining Gerard Gallant coming over and going, okay, hop in there. And I bet you anything they both laughed about it when he hopped over the boards, because the situation. We had a similar thing happen when I was at St. Lawrence University, and it was my sophomore year, that we had this guy on our team that he did not have the resume to be an NCAA Division I player. I'm honestly not sure where he came from. But he practiced so hard every day, like taxi squad. And our coach tossed him in one game for true garbage time the same way. And he ended up playing 10 games that year. And I think he had 1 assist. We went 11, 21, and 5. So obviously we were searching. And he probably didn't belong out there. But that's the closest I could think of where somebody who truly hopped over the boards with no expectations. And then, man, that guy parlayed it into 10 more games. It was absurd, but I look back on it now, I just laugh at it. It was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, a real life Rudy for the St. Lawrence University team. Wow. Certainly not Patrick Nemeth, though. $13.8 million in career earnings.
Good player.
Another 5 coming down the pike with 2 years remaining on his deal with the Rangers. Man, so many interesting games last night, Mike. Plenty of drama, 3 comebacks. What do we have in store for a handful of elimination games? And how many Game 7s do we end up seeing when it's all said and done? Mike, what do you think?
I think we're going to see at least 2 of them come out of tonight. I'll be in the building for Minnesota and St. Louis and have my analysis of that game out tomorrow as well for Game 6. And I think we're going to see 2 series go to 7. Frank, how about yourself?
I'm going to say 4 or 5, and that would be the most that we've seen in the first round since 2011. The last time we had 4 was 2011, and to go beyond that, you'd have to go way back to 1992 when we got 6, according to the National Hockey League. For a first round that was really devoid of drama for the first number of games with all the blowouts, the first round has surely made up for it with the way that it's ending up. Going to be fascinating to see. Mike, we'll have all the coverage for you at dailyfaceoff.com. Thanks to Mike McKenna. Thanks to Scott Burnside live from Tampa, as well as Tyler Uremchuk and our technical producer, Alex Lard. That is all the time that we have for today's show. As I mentioned, keep it locked on Daily Faceoff. We've got you covered from the Hart Trophy finalists announced today, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, and Igor Shesterkin, to a breakdown of why Jacob Trouba will not be suspended. Keep it locked there, and throughout the playoffs, we'll be back here 12 noon Eastern on Friday. Enjoy the games, everyone.
Thanks for watching the Daily Faceoff Show.
Make sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel to never miss an episode.